Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused Magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Today's patron shoutout goes to Amy. Thanks Amy for supporting me through Patreon. Hey gang, and welcome back. In today's game, Arja, Max, and Mathieu have joined me, and I'm playing my Coram deck, keeping Key to the City, Ignoble Hierarch, Faithless Looting, Swiftfoot Boots, the Balrog of Moria, Sir Conrad the Grim, and a Forest. Arja is playing one of his favorite decks with Breena, keeping Entomb, Jailbreak, Unearth, Reckless Technomancer, Inkshield, Swamp, and Caves of Koilos. Matt's just here to make piles all over my table, playing the Celestial Toymaker, and he keeps Island, Counterspell, Irrigated Farmland, Talisman of Dominance, Glacial Fortress, Lear Disciple of the Drowned, and a Spark Double. And last but not least, Max has built the all-new, or at least when I was filming this since Bloomborough has now since come out, Havi the Allfather, keeping Copperline Gorge, Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, Forest, Rada Heart of Keld, Safi Eriksdotter, Itali Primal Storm, and Rishkar Pima Rembrigade. Arja wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays an untapped Godless Shrine, taking 2. I've got a Forest, and I cast Ignoble Hierarch. Max just plays a tapped Canopy Vista. Mathieu draws and plays a tapped Irrigated Farmland. He passes, and during his end step, Arja casts Entomb, going to find Ranger Captain of Ios and putting to graveyard. Arja draws and plays a Swamp. He casts Unearth to bring back the Ranger Captain. This lets him tutor for an Esper Sentinel, which he then pays 1 white for, and passes. I draw and play a Volrath Stronghold, paying 2 for Swiftfoot Boots, and paying the 1 for the Esper Sentinel. I pass after that. Max draws, playing an untapped Copperline Gorge, and then casting Safi Eriksdotter. Mathieu plays an Island, and pays 2 for Talisman of Dominance. He can't pay the 1, so Arja draws a card. Arja draws for turn, and plays a Plains. He then casts Breena, and once she resolves, moves to combat. He swings the Ranger Captain at Max, and the Esper Sentinel at me. They each get 2 +1/+1 counters, and Arja draws 2 cards, and Max and I then take our hits. With nothing else, Arja passes. I draw and play Kazul's Cliffs and pass to Max. Max has a snow-covered forest, and he casts Rishkar. As he comes in, he puts a +1/+1 counter onto himself and Safi, and passes to Matt. Mathieu just plays a Glacial Fortress. Arja draws and plays a Plains. He casts Soul Ring and goes to combat. He swings the Esper Sentinel at me, and the Ranger Captain at Matt. Arja gets to pump his team and draw 2 cards, and then we take our hits. Arja then passes. During his end step, I cast Entomb, not paying 5 to the Esper Sentinel, and I go and tutor and bin Multani Marrow Sorcerer. I draw and play a tapped Temple of Malice, scrying 1. I then play Key to the City and pass. Max plays Argoth, and once it resolves, casts Rada. He follows up with Skrilev and passes to Matt. Matt's got an Island for turn, and he casts the Celestial Toymaker, losing 1 from tapping the Talisman for a colored mana. He passes to Arja after that. Arja draws and plays Exotic Orchard. He goes to combat, swinging the Esper Sentinel at me and the Ranger Captain at Max. And he gets his Breena triggers, putting all of the counters onto the Captain. Max blocks, while I take the hit. After combat, Arja casts Jailbreak, and I get Multani, while Arja gets to bring back Ruthless Technomancer. As the Technomancer comes in, he sacrifices the Ranger Captain and gets to make it 11 treasure tokens, and then passes to me. I draw and cast Coram in my main phase, and then pay the 1 to equip the Swiftfoot boots onto him. I then activate Key to the City on Coram, discarding the Balrog of Moria, and swing Coram at Arja. We all mill our 1, and the Balrog is the largest creature at this point. Arja then uses the Ruthless Technomancer's ability, sacrificing enough treasures to bring back the Ranger Captain of Ios, and goes to tutor for Mother of Ruins. He then sacrifices the Ranger Captain to its own ability to silence us, and follows up by casting Ink Shield. This has Arja fogging the attack, and getting 8 2/1 Flying Inkling tokens. With nothing else, I pass to Max. Max draws and plays a Kessig Wolf Run. He then casts Havi and passes. Mathieu draws and makes a deal with me to take 2 from the Toymaker, so he gets to make a pile. He goes to combat and swings at me. He gets the Toymaker trigger and gives me the choice. He says that he really wants that face down card, so I agree and give it to him. And I take the hit as we agreed. Matt then moves to a second main phase and plays a Plains. He then casts Make an Example. Matt promises Max and I some good piles, so I separate into Multani and everything else. And Max sacrifices Safi and targets Havi with it, and then brings back Skrilev. And then does Havi and everything else. Arja has to make a much harder choice and splits the majority of his Inklings with the Esper Sentinel, and Matt gives him the Breena pile. I then sacrifice Multani. Max then sacrifices Havi, which triggers its own ability, and he gets to bring back Plarg, and Havi also gets to come back thanks to the Safi Eric's-daughter ability on it. Matt then passes, and on his end step, the Toymaker triggers, draining us for 4. Arja draws and plays a Plains. He casts Timna and goes to combat. He swings his Inklings at me, Breena at Max, and the Technomancer at Matt. Arja puts the counters onto Breena, and we all then take our hits. In his second main phase, Arja draws 3 and loses 3 from Timna. He then casts Persist, bringing back the Ranger Captain, and gets another tutor, finding Giver of Ruins. He then passes turn. I draw and activate my key, discarding Faithless Looting to make Coram unblockable. I then go to combat and swing Coram at Arja. This is Arja responding by flashing an Archivist of Ogma, and then casts Swords to Plowshares and targets Radha. Max gains some life, but more importantly, this powers down Coram to only 19 power with Multani being in my graveyard, so Arja barely survives the hit. In my second main phase, I then play Shelter Thicket and pass. Max draws and then rummages with Plarg. He then plays Mosswort Bridge and casts Iroas and goes to combat. He swings Havi at Arja and Rishkar at Matt. Arja double blocks with the Archivist and Ranger Captain, and both of them die, but Arja at least takes nothing, while Matt takes 3. With nothing else, Max passes. Matt draws and goes to combat. He swings the Toymaker at Max and gets the on-attack trigger, with Max giving him the face-up pile. Max then takes 2. Matt then moves to a second main phase, playing a Swamp, and he casts Spark Double and has it come in as a copy of Toymaker. Matt then goes to his end step and has everyone lose 4 again thanks to his 2 Toymakers, and he passes to Arja. Arja draws and goes to combat. He swings the Inklings at Matt, Timna at Max, and Breena at me. Arja puts the counters onto Timna, and none of us block and take the hits. This has Arja gaining 6, and in his second main phase, pays 3 life and draws 3. He then continues by casting a Marionette Master, but Matt responds by countering it with a counterspell. Arja then casts Skull Clamp, and then Mother, and then Giver of Ruins. He then plays Stroke of Midnight and targets Key to the City, blowing it up. With that, Arja passes to me. I draw and cast the Great Henge for only 2 green. I then cast Sir Conrad, gaining 2 life off the Great Henge from tapping it, and putting a +1/+1 counter onto Conrad, and drawing a card. I then move to combat, and swing Coram at Arja. This has me milling Yargle and Multani, which triggers Sir Conrad dealing 1 to my opponents. Arja then chumps with the Giver of Ruins, which as it dies has Sir Conrad dealing another 1 to the table, and I pass to Max after that. Max draws and plays a Windswept Heath, and then cracks it, losing 1 for an untapped Sacred Foundry, losing 2 more. He then activates Mosswort Bridge, casting Terror of the Peaks, and follows up with a Tally Primal Storm. This has Max dealing 6 to the Spark double copy of Celestial Toymaker, thanks to the Terror of the Peaks, and he then goes to combat. He activates Skrilev, choosing black and targets Plarg, and swings it at Arja, and Havi and Iris go at me. I double black on Iris and float a green, but Arja and I then take the rest. My 2 creatures then die, so Sir Conrad deals 2 to my opponents. I also use the floating green to help cast Worldly Tutor, finding Titanoth Rex and putting it on top, and after that, Max passes. Matt draws and plays a Drowned Catacombs. He then goes to combat and swings the Toymaker at Arja. He gets his on attack trigger, with Arja giving him his face down pile. Arja then blocks the Technomancer. After combat, Matt casts Do or Die and targets Max, and puts all of his creatures into 1 pile, so he's unable to bring back anything with Havi to trigger the Terror. Matt then follows up with Fight or Flight, and passes, and during his end step, he gets his Toymaker trigger, which deals 4 to all of his opponents, which is enough to take Arja and I out. Max draws and plays a Plains, and then casts Gisela. He targets Matt with the Terror trigger, and with that on the stack, Max attempts to despark Gisela in response. Max is ready though, activating Skrilev to protect it, and Matt then takes 10. Going to combat, even with the creatures split from Fight or Flight, Matt can't prevent enough damage, and Max wins the game through combat. Game review time. So this game was just under 1 hour, sitting at about 56 minutes, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think it's really kind of disappointing how quickly things are coming out recently, because it feels very much like we're not getting a real chance to showcase some of these really cool commanders from Assassin's Creed. I know it wasn't everyone's favorite set, but I think there's some really powerful cards in it. As you saw, Havi, well, won, first of all, but we didn't get to see Max really using Havi's ability to the fullest. We got that 1 trigger with Plarg, but by and large it really didn't do very much. I think the concept around the deck was basically that Max wants to reanimate, sacrifice, and kind of swap stuff back and forth from his graveyard to the field, but really all it came down to was him just beating face. Matt's Celestial Toymaker, which is the second Universes Beyond property in this game with Doctor Who, is kind of cool. I like the idea of these like really niche build around me commanders where you have to play a lot of like older cards that don't make a lot of sense normally, like Fight or Flight or Do or Die, and the payoff is actually pretty decent. Matt got a ton of card selection from just getting the Factor Fission Vials basically, and having the Spark Double at the end of turn with his other commander, had he had another turn or two, would have probably been very, very, very painful. Arja's Breena deck is aggressive. It has a ton of ways to make small creatures, which there are a decent amount of good value ones in his deck, as you saw with Esper Sentinel, become bigger and bigger and bigger, all the while drawing more and more cards. I thought we were so dead as soon as that Ink Shield resolved, since I thought, you know, he's got like an army of 2/1s. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that he used Jailbreak to bring Multani back. Having prevented the damage from the Multani would have set him up really, really well, although I guess people stopped him with all the board wipes, which didn't really help him out. Coram is still a lot of fun. I have been enjoying him immensely. I like the fact that so much of the deck is kind of built around tricking people into letting me swing with Coram. If I hit a big creature, great. If not, so many of the cards in my deck have some kind of cycle ability built into them, so I can all of a sudden pump them up to be massive and smash face. The only downside I have with him is that I need so much to have trample or unblockable on the field, otherwise he's just never getting through. The fact that he doesn't have some kind of built-in combat ability is a bit of a bummer, but, you know, I think it would be too strong otherwise. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.